All right, I'll call this meeting to the town council to order. Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davis, Mr. Dombrowski,
Here.
Mrs. Evans,
Here.
Mrs. Engel,
Here.
Mr. Marshall,
Here.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Here.
Mr. Ryan, don't see him, Mr. Soms.
Here.
Oh, here he is.
Here it comes.
Him. I'll go back to Mr. Washington,
Here.
Mr. Ryan.
He's still connecting.
Yeah.
He's mute.
Yeah,
I'm here, sorry.
that's okay.
Okay, we got you here. Great. 8 here, 1 absent.
Okay, thank you. I have no presentations. At this point, I'll open the floor to residents or property owners to address the council. I will ask that if you are talking about short-term rentals and you've already submitted a letter to the council, we have received your communication and have read it. So just if you want to talk, just kind of paraphrase, so you don't need to read the whole thing. With that, I'll open the floor. Mr. Towson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Ledger Town Council, citizens of the town of Ledger. My name is Todd Tallstein for 15 Esca Drive. Here to follow up with my concerns addressed at the last town council meeting on August 25th, 2021. With regard to the short-term rentals, I apologize I didn't make it to the administration meeting today, but wanted to address the council and the members here after speaking with Mr. Harwood following the meeting that happened earlier this afternoon. I want to start off with saying following the last meeting, I was satisfied with the actions outlined by the mayor in the plan of action for addressing short-term rentals in Ledger. I was even more impressed with the attitude that Mayor Allen, after hearing details of his conversation with Mr. Harwood on the morning following that meeting in their one-on-one follow-up. So I really appreciate, the mayor taking his time and talking to Mr. Harwood in his office regarding that. However, this past weekend, we had the police respond to 3 separate incidents here on the street. They were uncoordinated calls by our neighborhood. I thought there were only 2. I found out about the 3rd one when I woke up in the morning and heard it from the neighbors that live next door. I question the resolve of the town on addressing this issue. I really do. Admit in my forthcoming statements, I'm not going to pull any punches. I've been in government for 15 years. I'm a member of the military. Found the best way to handle problems is to address it with frank and direct language. I was furthermore disappointed after speaking with Ms. Bartlett this evening, who's apparently been attempting to resolve these short-term rental problems, unpermitted, unenforced ordinances in her neighborhood for the past 2 years. And even more concerned to find out that at this point, the police department doesn't respond to some of her calls. I'm not sure what we're paying for in taxes here to follow the laws, to follow the rules, when these rentals are operating outside of them and there's been no enforcement in the past 2 years. I understand we have an ordinance. I understand we just threw it together, but these problems aren't just since the ordinance started. These problems have been going on and there's been no action taken to positively impact the town of Ledger. Having now learned about this in action on behalf of the government and seen the list of known and unenforced properties of the town, I've decided to probably contact local media regarding the issue. And I'd like to inform the town council before I do that, that's my intention. To close my remarks, I took the liberty of reading through the Ledger Town Charter today, particular attention to the duties and responsibilities of elected and appointed officials in the town. And I want to pull up one duty and responsibility. And it says, he shall see that all laws and ordinances governing the town are faithfully executed. And I feel that that is not being done. And to that, I yield my time to the council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Does anybody else like to address the council? Okay, hearing none. Committee, commission, board reports. I don't see any online. Comments to the town council. Mary.
I don't know if all of you knew, but Dave Olson died last week. Dave was a charter member of LV's, which was the Alleged Volunteer Emergency Squad. He provided many, many years of service to the town of Ledyard as an EMT and as a paramedic. He was also an active member of the Ledyard Fair Association. In 2015, he received a state citation, a Distinguished Achievement Award from the Connecticut Department of Health.
Thank you. Any other comments, Mr. Counselor Psalms?
I just want to say that it's not normally the policy of the council to respond to citizen comments or enter into a dialogue, but given the history that was just mentioned, I want to say that I too, and I know the rest of us are also concerned about the behavior with short-term rentals and other abuses of town ordinance. So I will offer my help any way I can.
Okay.
So thank you, Mr. Tolston.
Any other counselors?
Kevin, Tim Ryan.
Go ahead.
So I echo Bill's comments. I am actually concerned about one of the comments that Mr. Tolstein made. Well, multiple comments, but one in particular is the non-response of our police department. That actually surprises me because although it wasn't a short-term rental issue, I've had an issue on my own street and found the police to be very responsive. So I would like to understand that a little better, but as Bill said, it's, the policy had not entered to a dialogue. So Mr. Tolstein, what I would offer to you is the same as Bill. If you would like to contact me directly or Bill directly or any counselor, really, we're here for that.
Okay. Any other counselors? And I'll just add the same, echoing Counselor Ryan and Counselor Psalms. I'll offer my help as much as I can as well. This was a concern when we drafted the ordinance. I remember that all came up, but just a little history of that part of it. It was a very long and laborious process to get through the ordinance that we do have, and I'm disappointed that we're not following what the ordinance says. We do, just to the, I think it was mentioned at the last meeting also, there is a sunset clause in the ordinance to be reviewed again, so it should be going back to admin here soon. So we'll see what we can to take action within the ordinance itself. And anything else of that, I'll leave to the mayor in his report if he has anything to add at that time.
Mary, if I could add a comment back for just a second. I'd just like to clarify. We've only called the police on 6 Esca Drive several times, and they've responded very well. What Todd's referring to is the fact that the report from Pam Bartlett states that after about a year of the police responding appropriately, they've stopped responding to the same complaints about the noise. And so that's what Todd and I are both concerned about, is that if this continues on 6 more months at the 6 Esca Drive property, are the police going to become numb to our complaints about the noise as well as they have with the Long Cove one for Pam Bartlett? So that's what Todd was referring to. Not that we haven't had any response from the police, because we had great response on the 5th. They came out 3 times. But we're concerned that if this goes the same way it did on the Long Cove property, that we may be looking 6 months from now, the police being numb and saying, oh, there's another call about the Esca Drive. We just don't need to go out there. So that was Todd's concern, and I echo that.
Okay.
Yeah. Counselor Dombrowski, I just want to add about the sunset clause. We purposefully put that in there to force the council to review that ordinance after 2 years. It expires in February if we don't update and vote to approve it again.
Right.
Because we knew there would be a learning curve. And this is what we're trying to hold in tension, is certainly the right of a property owner to enjoy their own property without this kind of abuse from another property owner. And so we're trying to, at the time we were drafting it, and I think it took nearly 2 years of deliberating with all stakeholders, including attorneys, to try to draft something that we thought might be a good starting point, as towns around us were banning it altogether. And we thought maybe there's a way forward. Maybe we don't have to be the town that bans it. I'm still hopeful we can find that ground. I don't lose sleep over much, but I have actually lost sleep over your stories, because I can't imagine the frustration that you must feel. So I guess I just want you to know it's not falling on deaf ears. This is one of those times that I wish we could be more, there was a way to be more responsive. I do think that we need to build a penalty into the ordinance that is far more swift and severe to mitigate abuses. And I'll leave my comments there. Thank you.
And just an additive to some of the comments that are coming in the chat room. Thank you, Fred, that he mentioned that this is also an issue on a property on Long Pond Road as well, as been reported. And the sunsetting clause, like as Councilor Ingalls just mentioned, wasn't to get rid of the ordinance. The sunsetting clause, it forced town council to go look at it again to see what improvements we need to make to the ordinance to make this work. Because we knew that there would be issues that we didn't know of at the time. And this was, I think, one of the fears a lot of us had, of the people who would just skirt around the regs and just ignore them altogether. So, Mary, go ahead.
That's exactly what we did. We started tonight in admin and in looking at the ordinance, and we now have Mike Cherry, who is going to begin as the zoning enforcement officer. And I think that was some of the problem. There was no follow-up in the past with some of these complaints. So hopefully we'll begin to do something.
Okay. Any other councilors like to make comment? Okay, hearing none. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the prior meeting minutes of August 25th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, corrections? Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingalls.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, you have your communication list. There were no referrals. Council subcommittee liaison reports. We'll start with admin.
Admin met at 5:30 this evening. We approved 4 reappointments and began discussion on the short-term rental ordinance.
Any questions for admin? Community relations.
Community Community relations met on September 1st. 2 of the primary topics were we had planned to do a kind of an open form public informational for emergency services. After we had an opportunity to talk with the emergency services personnel, they actually, because October is kind of like fire month per se, they have a fire week in October. So they're planning on doing an open house. So the idea is to kind of just advertise that. It has a better showing. People can do hands-on, see what the emergency services provide. They're going to give us a date, what works best for them. The 2 different firehouses and the other services, they're going to be on separate dates so that people can go visit each firehouse and the different services that are provided and get kind of hands-on what they actually do all the time. And the other thing was we had changed our meeting. So we're going to be meeting only on the the 3rd Wednesday of the month, which would be the September 15th, the October 20th, November 17th, December 15th, January 19th, as we close out the session. And that's my report.
Any questions for community relations? Land use. Land use met last evening. Topics of discussion that we started looking at was utilities digging up roads that right after they've been paved. So we're trying to look at a way that if we can force the utility companies that when they do work in the road, and this came up due to a letter that went out that basically told the residents that an area in Gales Ferry was going to be paved, but stand by, the roads could be torn up because of the water issues with the water pump, the water system in the area. So we're looking to see if there's a way that we can either update the road ordinance or create a new ordinance that kind of forces the utilities when they do dig up newly paved roads that they're responsible to put it back and just instead of just patching it. I know there was, in the other item we would discuss, Mike, can you refresh my memory? What was the second?
The ag.
Expand
Oh, the agricultural,
ag-
that's right. That we're looking at the agricultural commission is looking to take on additional responsibility. So we have a draft edits from the agricultural commission to update the ag ordinance for them to take on further responsibilities. And that's my report. Any questions for land use? Liaison reports.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
can we do finance?
Did I miss finance? I did miss
Yeah.
finance. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So we met last Wednesday, September 1st at 5. This Councilor Solomons, by the way. And MIS Director Regina Brulot reports that the town has migrated the town's existing fax machines to MFax, which is an electronic fax system or platform, and that Frontier is in the process of disconnecting 6 fax lines that are no longer needed. And she's also negotiating a lower monthly cost. So we don't know what the savings are yet, but we expect to see some. Also, Finance Director Marcia Hancock reported that the annual audit for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2021 is starting, and the auditors will be at Town Hall the week of September 2021, you know what I mean. She's also recommending adding language regarding federal procurement to the purchasing ordinance on the recommendation of the auditors. And she also stated that if the council votes tonight to transfer the high school track and multi-use field project surplus in the amount of about $162,000 back to the general fund, then the general government surplus would be about $762,000 for the year just ended. And the Board of Education surplus was projected to be about $230,000. She went on to state that the town was able to achieve the surplus without having to transfer in $1.4 million in revenue from the mill rate stabilization fund and or the healthcare fund as originally budgeted for the fiscal year 2020-2021. She also noted that the mill rate, stabilization fund increased to $2.135 million as a result of new premiums from the town's May 2021 bond and band sales. This is all really good news. We were happy to hear this. The committee continued discussing the American Rescue Plan Act funding and will be merging their list with additional potential projects that the mayor has been tracking. We also continued discussing the long-term plan for fire apparatus and their replacement with the Director of Emergency Services, Steve Holyfield, Deputy Chief Todd Willis, and Captain Zach Willis. And we have scheduled a field walk on Wednesday, September 29th, 2021 at 5 p.m. And we plan to spend about 45 minutes at each of the 2 fire stations in town to learn more about the trucks and equipment, and all the counselors are welcome to that. And this is a public meeting, so anyone is welcome. The committee learned also in discussion that the frame rails on the Gales Ferry rescue truck are getting thinner due to rust, and the vehicle may not last another 9 years as we had hoped. So we'll hear more about this when we do our visit to the 2 fire stations. We've also invited the Board of Education Finance Committee to our next meeting next week to discuss how to account for advanced purchases of IT services made in order to take advantage of discounts, and everything else is on our agenda tonight. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions to finance? Liaison reports. John.
Good evening, everyone. We have a new superintendent on the school projects, and he's doing a fantastic job. Everyone involved is very pleased with his progress. He's gotten the punch list at the at Gallup Hill down to 7 items. And some of these items are just due to material supply, doors and hardware not coming in, stuff like that. The other ones are we need to add more padding to the stage because the basketball hoop was installed in the wrong spot. And the floor was already striped. So the quick fix was just add more padding to the stage. And then the other things like confirming that the radon system is actually working, just double checking it, make sure we're good to go there. The middle school, we're still working on fixing the roof leaks. They believe it's coming into a rooftop unit through the access panels. And some of the flashing is pulled away from the curbing. What we need to do is get Corey, the new superintendent. He's been focusing on Gallup Hill and he's really knocked out a lot. Now we need to get him down to the middle school and start knocking out that punch list. Everyone's confident he can do it in a short amount of time. We also got another thing's going to help us out is we got a third party to fix the roof leaks. And O&G has agreed to use the retainage money to pay for the third party to fix it. So if we can get that taken care of. We had a water hammer issue. They changed a pressure reducing valve that seemed to fix the problem. And I reported last month we had a problem with the incorrect voltage coming into the building, causing problems with the building's main control systems. Since then, the voltage has been fixed and we've had no more failures. So that probably fixed that issue. Some bad news, we did discover mold in the gym and the auditorium. There is we can get it cleaned up for about 20 grand, but we need to find out what's causing the mold. We don't know if it's moist air coming into the building or it's caused by the existing leaks. We just discovered it, so we're looking into that, and I'll report more back on that next time we meet. And we have received 4 bids for the Gales Ferry School BMS work, and we're reviewing them now. 1 bid was super low. Wayne Donaldson's looking at that, make sure nothing got missed, and we'll be going forward on that in the near future. And that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Counselor Marshall? Any other liaison reports? Hearing none, Mayor's report.
Yes, good evening, everybody. So thank you. I will start with just a couple quick comments on the short-term rentals. It was, I think, about 3 years that we worked on it before we got that ordinance off the ground. I would say that Ledyard was probably the first town in southeastern Connecticut to have a short-term rental ordinance. Because of that, likely because of that, we didn't have the advanced knowledge of what other towns were doing, and Noank is an example right now of somebody that's struggling to try to figure out how to address the short-term rentals. So I think what we did when we started several years ago, and everybody remembers the public hearing on it, it was live in the town council annex. It was very busy. There were a lot of people. There were attorneys representing the owners of the short-term rentals. There were long-term property owners. It was challenging, and I'm sure it will be again, but I think we have knowledge now to better understand how to regulate them. As I mentioned at the admin committee meeting earlier, we do have to follow Connecticut general statutes as it relates to fining, and we also have to allow for an appeal process. So that's something else that we have to be prepared to address, likely in this ordinance. But I think it's probably an important ordinance. I mentioned tonight that San Diego, California, a pretty large city, is just now putting one together. So I think we can pull some various ordinances together from around the country even that could provide us some really good verbiage to update our ordinance and make it bite a little bit more, because I do appreciate the concerns that people are having on Long Pond Road and Esca Drive. So my apologies to all of you for that. Our COVID cases have been up. We're at 55 cases over the last 2 weeks. There are 32 hospitalizations in New London County right now, which is about 0.006% of our county residents. Our peak hospitalization was in January 11th, I think it was, 2021, at about 102. So the state added a new figure today, which is the number of hospitalizations that are not vaccinated individuals, and that is more than 75% of those that are hospitalized right now are unvaccinated individuals. So we continue to urge people to get vaccinated. Ledgelight has clinics all the time. They have seemingly just a handful of people. They've increased lately after the FDA approval of the Pfizer vaccine, but we still got a long way to go. In terms of Ledyard's vaccination, our full vaccination rate is at 60.24% in town, with about an additional 3.5% that have had their first vaccination, but not the second. So we're in pretty good shape there. We're trailing East Lyme, Waterford, and Stonington in terms of our vaccination level. And Connecticut as a whole is actually tied with Massachusetts for the second highest in the country after Vermont. So things look pretty good there. Grant-wise, we're starting off the year again like we did last year, where we have now secured our second grant of the year. This one is the $20,000 State Historic Preservation Grant for the Updown Sawmill. So that is to be used explicitly for structural surveys for future structural improvements and needs over there. So they're going to start that process moving pretty quickly, which is great news for an incredible National Historic Register site. I will say that it's a sad day. It will be a sad day in January when Marcia Hancock retires as finance director. She has made that announcement, and she will be incredibly missed. Her talents are amazing, and she continues to provide amazing guidance for the town with her financial aptitude. So we had a meeting with a consultant on the 26th to kind of establish criteria for our search, and then we will be commencing a search shortly. I had my final meeting with my mentor student. I mentored a young man for 3 years. He was a Gales Ferry resident. His name is Ryan Proul, and he is now officially off to Dartmouth College. So huge congratulations to him. And it was great to see this young man grow over the years as he would come into the office. Also welcome back our Ledyard High School and all our Ledyard school students with Superintendent Hartling last Thursday. Great day for the kids to go back to school. We got to visit all the schools, see the various improvements that occurred over the summer in all the facilities. And it was great to see the kids back in school. And I think, generally speaking, they were happy to be back in school too. I also attended the swearing in of Beth Lehman, who is our new probate judge. Nick Keppel had to retire, mandatory retirement age of 70 years old. So Nick has retired and Beth has taken his spot. She is our new probate judge for the 4-town district of Groton, Ledyard, Stonington, and North Stonington. Another issue that we had, and I don't know if I shared this recently or not, but our air conditioning system at Town Hall has completely failed. It was inspected by an HVAC contractor. And it was determined to be unrepairable. It's about 10 years old, which doesn't seem like a whole lot to me, but we purchased it on a grant a little over 10 years ago. And because of the restrictions in the grant, we basically had to buy the cheapest system that we could, which is really unfortunate. I hate buying the cheapest thing, but we bought the cheapest thing. And so we only got 10 years out of the system. So it's something we're going to have to look at replacing. In the meantime, over the past several weeks, we've been operating on window units, and we're going to continue that for the year. So we'll get through that all right. And then today, I attended REPT, which is the Regional Emergency Planning Team. We have an annual meeting where we have a tremendous amount of money, several $100,000 of federal money to purchase emergency equipment. And we have professionals in our Region 4 that come up with shopping lists that we get. And some of these things you've seen deployed in town before, things like the towable signboards that we post at various intersections. We've even used them for I think it was the last election when we moved voting from Ledyard Center School to Gallup Hill School. We had those signboards in various locations. So we are purchasing more signboards. We're purchasing towable generators. We're purchasing a solar powered charging trailer that can charge up to 90 devices at a time. We were purchasing a couple additional solar messaging boards, light towers, and portable command posts. So all of this stuff, and the reason I say this is that all of this stuff is for Region 4, but it is all available for all of the towns of Region 4. So if we have a need, and sometimes it has nothing to do with emergency needs, it's just if we had a need, kind of like we did of letting people know that our polling place had changed for Ledyard Center, we can get these assets. They're housed in Norwich. We just have to go up and pick them up and bring them back and then return them when we're done. So there'll be a lot of additional assets up there that are made available to all of us. And those should be here. I think they said by December, everything will be here. So plenty of stock, and hopefully we don't have to use a lot of this stuff in emergency purposes. And that is all I have for you tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anybody have any questions to the mayor? Hearing none. We have no old business. Would anybody like to amend the agenda under new business? Seeing nothing. Finance Committee, number 1. You're up, Bill. You're on mute.
Yep, haven't done that in a while. This is Councilor Solms. I move to approve Amendment 2021-1 to the retirement plan for full-time employees of the town of Ledyard.
Do I hear a second?
Counselor Ingalls, second.
Discussion.
So we have one employee who in Public Works who is still under the rule of 85, and we've had a request to move to the rule of 82, which is combining years of service and age, at which point one can retire. We have asked our council to Siegel to review the cost of the town. The cost is negligible to move this one. There is only one employee affected by this change, and the cost is negligible. And what this means is when we move this employee and change the plan to the rule of 82, that means this employee will no longer have to work 1.5 years longer than all of their peers. And Don Steinhoff, who is our Director of Human Resources, is also present in case I misspoke. So how do I do, Don?
Good job.
All right. Thank you.
Any questions? Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans,
yes,
Mrs. Ingalls,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to transfer Ledyard High School track and field project surplus in the amount of $162,474.46 back to the town's general fund with an effective date of June 30, 2021 as follows. Debit account number 210-90305-59300, CNR transferred funds for $162,474.46. Credit account 101-9502-49002, general fund transfers in for $162,474.46 and decrease the appropriation to account number 210-70101-58259 by $162,474.46.
Do I hear a
Seconded
second?
by Councilor Ryan.
Thank you. Discussion.
So earlier in the year, the Finance Committee was approached by the Permanent Municipal Building Committee and the Board of Education. They had a surplus in the track and field project, and they wanted to spend this dollar amount on 2 add-on alternatives, which came with the track and field project. One was roughly half the amount was for a new scoreboard, because we now have a multi-use field, but we don't have a multi-use scoreboard. And also replace the aging fence that's at least 30 and I suspect 60 years old that surrounds Ledyard High School on the Gallup Hill Road side. These were two items that were both part of the project, but they were add-on alternatives, meaning if they had enough money, they could add them on. At the time, they didn't think they would have enough money to complete the project because of the experience of digging in the soils of Ledyard. You never know what you're going to find, as Stephen Jeskowitz likes to say. So they did not go forward with those two projects at the time. The project is completed, the bids are stale, and the finance committee, when we looked at this early, also felt that these two projects should really go through the capital improvement plan review as well as a planning review. I forget what the 820 review, 820G, something like that.
824 review.
824, thank you. So since they weren't in the capital plan, we feel that they should be. The finance committee believes that both of these are legitimate projects, and they should be done, but they should be done through the normal process because we have other things that also need attention and limited amounts of money. So the finance committee is recommending that we move these funds back to the general fund, go through the process and consider them at a later date.
Any questions? Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans,
yes,
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to approve end of year transfers in a total amount of $96,782.10 as follows. And I'm going to draw a deep breath. Debit account 101-10253-52100, Healthcare Board of Education for $96,782. Credit account 101-10101-53610, Town Council Legal Services for $9,699.49. Credit account 101-10205-53610, specially approved counsel for $11,640.99. Credit account 101-10301-51700, registrar's wages for $885.48. Credit account 101-12101-56100, finance operating expenses for $873.76. Credit account 101-12131-54421, tax refunds for $70,489.23. And finally, credit account 101-30301-51610, Youth Services Director for $3,193.15.
Do I hear a
Second.
Counselor Ingalls.
Oh, sorry,
So-
Andrea.
So this is housekeeping we do at the end of every fiscal year. The year ends June 30th, and accounting or finance has to make all the accounts balanced. Sometimes accounts are overspent, sometimes they're underspent. The good news for us is that healthcare from the Board of Ed healthcare costs were lower than expected, lower than budgeted, and that is what is funding these other transfers. So this makes all accounts equal, and we can close the books on June 30, 2021. And as I mentioned earlier, in my report, see a significant surplus.
Thank you. Any questions? Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans,
yes,
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to appropriate Cable Television Advisory Council of Southeastern Connecticut CTASC 2021 grant in the amount of $2,813 to CNR account 210-12151-57310 MIS replacement equipment to be used to purchase equipment to improve video streaming and support hybrid meetings in the council chambers.
Is there a second?
Second, Counselor Ryan.
Sorry.
So 10 years ago, we got equipment in the council chambers to stream video, record and stream video to the public so that people can watch council meetings from home and all other board and committee, board and commission meetings. We got speakers, we got a camera, we got recording equipment, we got a large screen TV, and technology changes quickly, as we all know, and with Zoom, and the amount of time that we're spending, everyone is spending on video conferencing, this will allow us to use, it's 100% grant, there's no match, and we'll be able to purchase a wide angle camera, video camera, which will not require someone to stand and point the camera and focus it. It captures the entire council. It also includes a speakerphone and a computer or a server to support the system. Again, there's no match from the town. It's free equipment, and we will use it to improve the residents' at-home experience watching meetings.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to approve 2 tax refunds in the combined total amount of $10,787.46, with each exceeding the $2,400 in accordance with tax collector departmental procedures.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Counselor Ingalls.
Discussion.
So we recently changed the ordinance, which allows the mayor to approve tax refunds. Almost all tax refunds are cases where the escrow company and the taxpayer paid the tax. Therefore, they've doubled the tax bill, and we have to return one of them. So they go through a process. It is reviewed by the tax collector, finance department, the mayor signs off on it. But if it exceeds $2,400, if a tax refund exceeds $2,400, then it comes to the council. Council Finance Committee has reviewed both of these refunds. They are both cases where the tax has been paid by both parties and one needs to be refunded.
Any questions? Roxanne, please call the roll.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to authorize the transfer of up to $4,000 from account 210-90305-58915 CNR Undesignated to account 210-50101-58790 CNR Library Miscellaneous Expenses to purchase a new telephone system after the previous phone system was destroyed by water from Storm Ida. If FEMA funds become available, this expense will be submitted for reimbursement to the undesignated account.
Second.
Counselor Evans.
Okay. Discussion.
So we got a lot of rain last week and it took out the Bill Library's phone system. We've asked some questions, had some dialogue about it, considered putting it on the town phone, on the town hall phone system. It seems like this is the least expensive alternative by far. It's under the $5,000 that requires getting multiple bids. And in the interest of getting the phone system up and running, the library director is recommending this system. And I know that the mayor has worked hard with her on this, so ask him if he has anything to add.
Yeah, I would just add that the pricing that Library Director Bradbury got is actually less than the state bid contract, so that is a plus. The phone system's about 10 years old, and I had looked at seeing if we could relocate it because it's in the basement, which, as you know, electronics and damp basements are probably not ideal. So, but we couldn't do it because all the lines come in there, so they'd have to reroute everything to try to get it upstairs. So what I have asked is if we could put a kind of like a weatherproof box on the plywood panel that holds the phone system, and then mount the phone system inside that box so that it's protected from moisture and potential water intrusion. So even though the bid is $32.35 and we're asking for up to $4,000, thinking that if we have to, I think it's a wise investment given where the location of the phone system has to be to do our best to protect it from the moisture.
Councilor Soms?
Mayor, do they have a dehumidifier running in the basement there?
They do have a dehumidifier, and the basement down there is prone to dampness and water. In this particular instance, it was a driving rain that came from the north side of the building, and it actually came through the sheathing, which is what caused the system to get damaged. So they're also working on pulling some of the sheathing off the side of the building to try to seal up that wall a little bit better too. So, because obviously the phone system wasn't mounted close to the ground, it was just that it literally was driven through the wall and then saturated the wall where the system was.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Evans,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. That's all I have. I don't have anything else to add. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a
Council.
second?
Second.
This meeting is adjourned without exception. Thank you, everyone.
Night,
Have a good
everyone.
night, everybody.
Good night.
Have a great night.
Hey.
Are unmuted.